Hi, I'm Daniel Metler from Tusik Internet Solutions, and the sessions at DNN Connect 2019 were mostly not recorded, so I decided to make a very short, abbreviated 15-minute version of my session on organizing knowledge and work within minutes. So this is a short version. I'm going to skip a little bit that we had in the live session, and there will not be a Q&A, of course. So let's go and have a look at this. Basically, one of the core issues we have as a business is that we cannot charge barely as much as we would need to, because there's so much time lost when we're doing things. So many people do things incorrectly because they don't know better or because the specs are wrong. And then after taking way too long to do it incorrectly, we take a lot more time to fix it again. And this may even happen many months down the road after we've already built everything, and then we realize we're still missing stuff, or we have to do it all over, and we cannot build that anymore. So most of us cannot even bill half of the time that we actually have in our company. And what's even worse is we're still trying to get our pricing so low just to get our customers happy that we'd actually have to bill more than 50%. So these are the two challenges we want to look at today, just to see how this can be fixed simply by organizing knowledge and how we work. So we're going to talk about this thing called azing. And just so you have a little bit of a background, I grew up in the jungle and I came to Switzerland when I was 17. So I didn't have any real education or anything. And so when I founded my business 4 years later, I didn't have a clue. And after a while, it started going. I was a techie. I loved doing my stuff, but I wasn't really good at organizing a company. And so after a while, that started really hurting us. I spent most of the time traveling from desk to desk, telling people what they should do, telling them how they should do it, then looking at what they did and deciding it's crap and having them redo it again and again. We couldn't meet the deadlines. It was terrible. And so basically I decided I needed something that can empower the people to preserve their knowledge and how they work, and that they themselves can maintain something that actually lives and empowers and doesn't just set restrictions. And I decided I need a way that is very open, because I didn't want it to be like I'm imposing my way to the people, but the people can develop the right way as it goes. So the solution was something that we originally had different names for, but now we're calling it azing, as we've launched it about a month ago. And basically these are recipes. So the idea is it's like a checklist, but it does a lot more. There are input fields. I can track my progress. I can also say that I'm not going to do something, which is very important, because I can forward this to somebody else after maybe I filled in the first few things, so they can continue my work. And if it's not visible what has been done and what should not be done, this would cause a lot of trouble. People wouldn't know, did he forget this step or did he intend to not do it? So this is kind of like the basics of it, but it's much more powerful than that, because this is the same recipe now, just a little zoomed out. And if you look at the bottom part there, you see a box of a sub-recipe. This is another recipe, which is completely standalone, but I can make it part of my main recipe and unfold it as I need it. So as you can see here, I would click on that link over here, which says whole site. It'll open another recipe. And another recipe is a lot like a sub-function call, like a procedure call. So I am kind of writing a program for people, except that it's super simple to write. And it includes instructions that humans can read. Images, of course, can be enlarged. And this very basic principle can scale tremendously. So we have over 500 recipes in our company, because we've been working with this model for over 13 years now. So let me just give you a very brief live demo here, so you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. Here's a simple recipe that I use to install a software on DNN. And so I might do this, then I want to make sure I have a super user login, and I might not know what that is. Then I just unfold it, I look at it, there's nothing to check off here. So I did that. Yes, I'm a super user. Now I can download it from GitHub. Most people know how that works, but if not, there's a sub-recipe or a sub-procedure, which would tell me how that actually works, just in case I didn't know. But let's say I already downloaded it, so I'm going to click it again to collapse that. And then I would install it. And here's even help in case I'm using a different version of DNN. And when I'm done, I'm going to start doing more advanced stuff, including installing more things, installing content templates, following these instructions, going through the screenshots just to make sure nothing is forgotten and that it's done the very same way consistently, which really helps for follow-up work, which will come after that. And I can also edit this, and you'll see this is very simple text. Basically, anybody that can type can create a recipe because it's just anything that's a list will become checkable. Links to other recipes will be automatically unfold. Input fields are just as easy to make, but this is just a short demo, so I'm not going to go much deeper into it. The second one I'm just going to show is a much more sophisticated version where I have more input fields. And then, for example, I would take this recipe here, fill it in, and I would then take this and send it to somebody. And when I'm done sending it, I might open this one, also fill in a few bits of information, and send it to somebody else. So this way, there's a complete sequence of how I'm working, and everything's in here, everything is easy to edit. And let's say the person who's in charge of this recipe here, who has to do that, realizes he's missing information. He'll just update the recipe, add a new input field, and next time the specs are complete. So this is super simple, and that's basically how it works. There's some key points here, and since this is the short version, let me just point out one important thing. So far, I've seen a lot of attempts at knowledge management systems, but they all fail because when I'm working, I never really quite know when I should be using them. But because here we're not just preserving the knowledge of, oh, and by the way, this is the command line you need, we're also preserving the knowledge of this is how you actually do something. So not just the technical, but also the process knowledge. And we're linking to other information when we need it. This really makes knowledge management come alive and actually work in teams. The other key point I'd like to mention is the single source of truth, because the recipe is the place where it says how we do things. So if I decide there needs to be another step, I can put it in there and I know that my team uses the recipe. And they will find that step, discover it, and work the better way the next time they execute the same kind of a task. So the vision is to create a global Wikipedia of recipes. Something that kind of tells you this is how you can do things, this is how to do it right. And the vision is really that this is both for us, technical people, but it's also for any other kind of activity. Whether it's preparing your house for winter, making sure the taps are closed so the pipes won't freeze. Whether it's for a farmer in Kenya that would need to find out how to make a fertilizer out of cow poop. Step-by-step instructions to really do things right. And it's a combination of both the GitHub and Wikipedia principles. So everybody can contribute. But if you like a recipe and you're like, this is pretty cool, but I need it a bit differently, then I can just fork it. I can just say I need a clone of this, and I might improve it and publish it to the public. But I might also just customize it for myself because maybe my garden is a little bit different, and I might not publish it. But this really allows people to just get things done, create their own instructions. They might clone a travel recipe and adapt it to their needs. So I'm going to just show you a little bit very briefly of things how we in 2SIG use azing and this principle that we've been using for years. Here's a simple onboarding recipe that we use when people start working here. And this is one that's just for sales, and you'll see there's all these things of what they should do. And the amazing thing is every time we onboard somebody, which doesn't happen a lot, it's like just every maybe 2 years or so in sales, they can pick up this recipe, they can use it, and they're like, oh, we forgot something, we add it, and even if the next onboarding is 2 years later, it'll be reliable and it will have learned from the previous experience. So this is very powerful. Here's another example. Who here has not had to sign an NDA? And that's always a very scary thing because there's always things in there that could basically kill your company. And just having a control mechanism where you say, I'm going to check if if it's fair, if the liability thing even makes sense, if this could kill me, and I can choose to not sign it. Because the truth is, most companies will first give you a crazy NDA, and then you're like, wait a second, this doesn't work. This is not how we work together. They'll usually give you a different one once you say that. But to have a recipe that is reliable, where my secretary can actually check the NDA and say, Daniel, these are the 4 things we found, it saves so much time and takes a lot of weight off of my shoulders. And another example, this is an IT operations example. it's mostly PowerShell commands. So everybody does it their own way, and that's fine with me because they have to understand it. And if they don't, they at least know, here's a step I don't understand. I might need to look it up to understand why this is. One more example, more from the web world. A favicon is super simple, but the truth is, it's easy to fuck up. Because you'll maybe have the wrong size and you'll think it works, but somebody will come along with an Android and it doesn't. And instead of educating everybody about all the things a favicon can be and can be wrong, it's best to have an expert create instructions, create a step-by-step checklist, which includes things like make sure before you start you have the right picture in the right size. And then you'll see down in the bottom corner of the screen, there's even snippets that you can just copy over and use again in your project. So this is really, really productive. Now, there's a missing link to this because what you just saw right now on the slides, we've released this on May the 4th, and it's working. Now, the missing key to this, though, is that I can take a recipe and start working on it and remember where I was last time, and maybe even take the same recipe for another customer, like the favicon, so I'm having them run multiple times with the state and context, and I'm just getting my stuff done. So the missing piece is something like this state or task management, which basically just contains, please do this person's responsible, these are the recipes we're going to use. I'm going to do a very brief demo because this is still totally beta. We just launched it this Monday. And so it's still internal use only. But basically, here's an example I used to install a DNN. You see, here's the recipe to install NV QuickSight. Then I, for example, installed a Bootstrap theme. And I went through these steps to install the theme. You'll see a lot of it is done. That's why it's already collapsed, so I don't have to look at everything. And I started customizing it and things like that. And this works really, really well. And I can always just do a few steps. If I'm interrupted, I still know where I was. And I can say, okay, I'm just going to do the first 5 steps and then send it to somebody else. This is a very, very powerful concept. So the key points here are that I know where I was, I know where other people are, I know who did which parts of this, which is awesome because let's say later on I find out the favicon recipe was maybe not complete. Now I can find out all the times I've used it in that wrong version and go fix all those sites. This is really, really cool. And what's also awesome is everything that's done is automatically documented while I'm doing it. So I have a full history of what I did for this customer or for that project or when I was preparing the booth for something. So here's where it kind of ties into the original question. The amount of lost hours fell dramatically by introducing this system. Like most of the key points went down by 80 or even 90%. And that already really gives you much, much more air to breathe because you don't have all these unbillable hours. And you know the quality's right, and we know who did it, and we can actually really continuously improve ourselves. And if you think about this just for a moment in your life, in the projects you have, this would really solve a lot of things you've been suffering on. But it goes even further because the second thing was that when we sell our hours, a challenge is that if we get better, we kind of get cheaper because we've been selling hours, now we're faster, and now we have to charge less. But by this productization, which can start with recipes, once you know this recipe, a favicon, takes you, let's say, an hour to do right. And then you can say, well, the value of that is, I'm just going to make up something, it depends on your country, $200. Well, you can say, look, this is $200, and it doesn't matter if I do this in 12 minutes or 60 minutes because the value is the same. And you know the output will also be the same. So here, just as a short example, one of the things we first did used to take us over a day to get it right. Then we started making recipes. And when we got that right, we even started automating it. So now it takes us just about 3 minutes. And we're still charging the value that would otherwise cost us about 6 hours. This can really save your life because you can now sell something like, oh, you want an installed whatever. And not, installing this might take me 3 hours, but it might also take me 5 hours. This makes life so much easier. So here, because we're kind of trying to keep this short, I'm just going to show 3 slides. but I'm not going to go much into detail. But using it privately is free, will be free forever, super simple. Community mode, where you're publishing your knowledge and sharing it, free forever, super and simple. If you want to use it in a closed team, so you don't want to share what you're doing with others, you must become a sponsor. It's going to be a few dollars per employee. And then you can use this in the secret mode, where you do your own thing, where you choose which recipes to publish and which not. The private mode can also choose which to publish and which not, but they cannot work in a team. There's also the consultant model. And of course, if you're an NPO or a charity or something like that, please contact us, because we would really like to help you get started on this. And we're either going to give it to you for free or at a very, very reduced discount. So we really enjoy to see NPOs use this, because we really believe there's a lot of potential in the third world for people that don't have the same access to education, for example, to doing things. And our vision, though, is we want to create a public Wikipedia of recipes. That's where we want to go. So we'd rather have you not pay and share than pay and doing it privately. So please join us on this journey. Help us to make awesome recipes for DNN. There's a section called DNN Community, and it already has about 20 recipes in there, but let's make this awesome. So there are recipes for creating pages and themes and making changes and setting up multi-language, or even for selling DNN, whatever you can think of to help other people get going. So please be with us. Thank you for watching. This was Daniel Mettler, 2SIC Internet Solutions, for DNN Connect 2019 in Switzerland.